I expected some repercussions from the action that we all took on October 11th. We shut down 5 tar sands pipelines carrying tar sands oil from Alberta, Canada into the U.S. for a day. We had planned the action for 5 months, I expected to come to court here. I expected to spend some time in Montana. I moved into a camper van last July because I knew I would be spending a lot of time on the road, not just to come to court, but because part of the commitment we made in taking that action was not just that single day. It was for what we estimated would be about a year of effort, taking the attention that we could get from that action to speak at gatherings like this, to speak at churches, at universities. I have to tell you that this kind of talk was way more intimidating to me than shutting off that valve or the thought of going to jail. And so I'm getting more used to being in front of folks and talking about it. I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, I'm 65 years old, I'm retired, I love my children, I love my life, and the time I've spent in Montana getting to know the countryside here and the people, I didn't expect to love Montana and to love the people the way that I have. Angela and I have talked about whether we might move to Montana. And so I want to get to know you guys just a little bit. I'm not going to talk very long. I'm not a good talker the way that Jeff is. How many of you folks are affiliated with 350 Montana or 350 Missoula? I kind of see that. And I know that some Citizens Climate Lobby folks are here. I think it's Scott that is in that group. How many are there? Over that way? Okay. And then there's something called like Montana Resistance or something like that. Maybe how many folks are with other groups besides 350 Montana? Okay, quite a few. Okay, I'm reverbing a little bit too much. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the help. And how many of you folks have gone to a protest? How many of you are really worried about climate change? How many of you feel desperate that are asking yourselves what you can do to get us on a better course? So there's a lot of resonance here. We're on the same page, and so for me, in addition to being a father, a grandfather, a retiree, a former public servant, I worked for the state of Oregon for 31 years, retired the end of 2010. I became a climate activist in 2011, and at first that meant participating in co-founding 350 Corvallis. It meant testifying at hearings. It meant holding up signs and doing marches. It meant going to the Capitol in Salem, Oregon, and lobbying legislators. It meant bringing a lawsuit against the Department of Motor Vehicles in Oregon for permitting megaloads through the eastern Oregon. You folks in Idaho and Montana had blocked the megaloads taking equipment up to the tar sands in Alberta, and they tried to do an end run, take it through the scenic highways in eastern Oregon. We said no. And so that was where I transitioned from legal methods of trying to stop the harm that's being done and transitioned over into civil disobedience. I locked down to one of the megaloads that was trying to make that run through eastern Oregon. They transported it down the Columbia to the port of Umatilla, and with Umatilla tribal members, a former chieftain, his daughter, a tribal elder, we blocked that megaload for a day, and my partner Angela's daughter a week later locked down and blocked that same mega load and delayed it for another day. Long story short, we cost them so much money and made them realize it was not a feasible alternative to running through Idaho and Montana for those mega loads. We stopped them along with you. I feel a deep partnership with you. And like you, in the battles against the Otter Creek and the other ones that are going on here in Montana, we've been fighting fossil fuel infrastructure, new fossil fuel infrastructure projects in the Pacific Northwest for a long time. And the truth is, and we've been very successful, but the truth is, even if we're 100% successful in stopping all the new projects, which there's over 24 that have been proposed for the Pacific Northwest, that's not enough. There's enough fossil fuels in the pipeline flowing through, being burned, that we've got enough to cook the planet. And I have to tell you, when I read books like This Changes Everything, when I looked at the reports, when I looked at what Guy McPherson says about tipping points, when I really read the science, I came to a point of desperation. I've never liked evangelists. I've never liked salespersons. They have a place, but I don't like trying to convince people. My feeling has always been you give people the facts and you let them make up their minds. And it was so distressing to come to the point where I realized that I couldn't just do what was right for my own life, that wasn't enough. It didn't matter if my carbon footprint was 0. It didn't matter if I was living in the new ways in terms of using public transportation, in terms of getting my food locally, all those things. That didn't make a difference. It didn't make a big enough difference. I can't say it didn't make a difference, because all of us working together, that will make a difference. And there are so many people, I interrupt myself and say I don't feel like civil disobedience and direct action is the be-all, end-all. It's not the only thing that needs to happen, but the things that need to happen, like the change in the transportation system, like the transition from fossil fuels to alternative energy sources, like local food, like the changes in our culture and our economy, people are working on that. They know what the problem is, they know what the solutions are, and they're having a hard time to make the transition to help us do that. There's big money from the fossil fuel companies. They're the most profitable enterprise ever in human history. And with that money, with that influence, they've infiltrated our federal government, our state governments, so that we don't really have the democracy that we had in the past. There's always been the influence of big money and a mix of democracy and lack of democracy in our country. We all know that, but it's gotten so much worse. A majority of us can have this concern, can really want a change in policy, and where we don't have the influence that we need to change U.S. policy. And historically, civil disobedience, civil resistance has helped push things into policy that there wasn't the public will to do without that civil disobedience. It's helped people see that they're the last chance. And so it's out of desperation that I participated, and I began to participating in this civil disobedience. There's people that tell us that we've got decades to make this transition, and I don't believe that. From reading the science, I think we've got a window of 4 or 5 years. And it's not that that I'm pessimistic and don't think that we can make a difference. But if we let things go where we're just continually emitting more and more carbon into the atmosphere, if we do nothing in the next 4 or 5 years, I'm really afraid that that's it, that we're going to cross tipping points of melting tundra that releases methane, that ocean heating that releases methane. You know, I won't go into the science because I'm not good at that. But when I read the people who are good at that, who are reputable scientists. If I took my kids to the doctor and they said that there's a 75% chance or even a 60% chance that my child's going to develop cancer because of some condition, I'm going to do everything I can to do what the doctor says. If I have any doubts, I'll go to a second doctor or a third doctor. We're in a situation where we've got 97% of the Earth's scientists. We've got lots of additional second opinions. We know what the problem is. And so, bottom line, a lot of the reason for the action we took was to try to demonstrate from our perception what's the appropriate response to this emergency, and to call our fellow citizens to action, to look at the emergency and look at their own skills, their own passions, their own calling, and see what they can do to block this. And so I really appreciate you all coming. This is a fundraiser. There's 9 of us still that have multiple felony charges. And altogether, we're expecting, because it isn't just one trial, likely. For instance, Ken Ward in Washington, thankfully, there was at least one juror that, even though they heard the testimony, that Ken acknowledged that he trespassed on the pipeline property and closed the valve, showed them, the jury, a video, which they watched twice, of him going in and shutting that valve. They refused to convict him. They couldn't get a unanimous conviction. He's having now. So his second trial starts on the 22nd of this month, and likewise there'll be an appeal if he is convicted in this trial. So in each of the cases of the 9 of us, it's not just one trial. We're looking at multiple times before the court, and the costs for the attorneys to prepare the briefs and represent us. And so that's what we're out fundraising for and talking about why we did this. So my trial will be July 18th in Fort Benton. And I'd love for all of you that can make it to be there. Thank you.